You know what one of the most profound things that someone said to me after I exited and sold my business? It was one person that did it. I did not know who he was. We were at an event. Never met him before in my life. He starts talking to me, very friendly, nice guy. He asks me, what are you doing in Dubai? And I tell him I was in Kuwait, sold, exited my business. People's response to that are always, whoa, go you, congratulate, you must be living it up, go you. You know what Darren asked me? He asked me, how are you doing? Are you okay? How's that affecting you? Not one person asked me that. This stranger that I met at an event asked me that simple question. Why don't we do more of that?
Hello folks, welcome to My First Business. I'm Naeem Pervez, and this podcast is for entrepreneurs, young or old, who are looking to improve the way that they look after their business. Each episode is designed to be like a conversation with a mentor that you never had, and you'll find inspiration, guiding principles, and possibly some solutions to your current business problems. We talk about the lows, like wanting to shut it all down, and we talk about the highs, like starting your second or your third or your fourth successful business, and also everything in between. My guest for today's episode is Dana Alhanbali. So I won't lie, I had a pretty hard and challenging time preparing for this conversation because the more I researched about Dana, the more I learned about her, I started to realize how similar our wavelengths are. But yet she's accomplished so much in such little time that I had to learn how to do that for myself. And she didn't disappoint a bit when it came to inspiring me. Dana has been working in the brand industry for 14 years. She started off in brand design, moved into strategy, and then was appointed to run a multinational agency's office in the region. 7 years ago, she co-founded her creative firm in Kuwait called Beattie Dane, which has been recognized globally and across the region at award shows like Cannes Lions and Dubai Lynx, and was ranked top 3 independent agencies of the year twice. In 2022, she sold her shares in the business and exited, and is on her way to pursuing her new passion. She now resides in Dubai, where she runs a strategic consultancy for CEOs called Bark Berg, and she also has a podcast. It's called Something to Consider. Dana is a creative at heart, and she wants to tell stories from her region. She wants to engage in deep conversations and create things that push conversations and storytelling forward, as you'll hear in this episode. Here are some of the highlights from our conversation. We spoke about the most viral campaign Dana has worked on. It is an absolute masterclass. You should not miss that part. We talked about starting businesses and how wanting different contrasts with wanting more. Dana mentioned how being able to craft wild dreams with her business partner, even though there weren't many clients, made her realize that she's on the right path. We talked about why it's healthy to start saying no to clients. We spoke about her personal experiences of working with business partners. She filled me in on her new business, which wasn't even launched at the time of recording this episode. I asked her about her motivations and what she hopes to get out of her podcast called Something to Consider. We talked about her take on the 3 different types of entrepreneurs: the rational, the ambitious, and the commander. We spoke about burnout and what it means to be in a constant chase, and much, much, much more. What I love about Dana is she calls it like it is, and neither of us felt the need to sugarcoat ourselves in this conversation. I was left to consider many things after our chat, and I think Dana has a way with words. She has this ability to make you think for yourself without giving you step-by-step advice. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Please do share it with someone that you love. Without much further ado, here's Dana Alhanbali on the EO series of the My First Business podcast. This episode is brought to you by the Entrepreneurs Organization. Now, before I tell you what they do, first, let me tell you the numbers behind Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO for short. So they started in 1987. They've currently got 17,000 influential business owners as their members, spread across 213 chapters in 60 plus countries worldwide. They've been in the UAE since 1997 and have 119 members here, with a median member sales of roughly $4 million. And altogether, the total number of people employed by their members is over 23,000. And they've got members from all sorts of industries, including technology, healthcare, oil and gas, real estate, hospitality, jewelry, communications, logistics, travel. I could really go on. Mind blown yet? Now, here's what EO is actually all about. Here's what you get for being a member of EO, or here's what they do for you. EO in UAE provides an effective platform for networking, education, and support for business owners. The entrepreneurial journey can be lonely, and I can attest to that. And with an economy that changes on a dime, it can be hard to know what your next move should be. And that's where EO comes in with their support. One of the key benefits of membership is access to a robust calendar of events, including workshops, social events, and learning opportunities. So you get a ton of networking opportunities as well as a chance to learn from experts in your own field. EO also offers a mentorship program, so they pair you up with experienced business leaders who can offer guidance and support as you grow your own business. So for me, I've personally or vicariously benefited a lot from being in the EO network through their accelerator program, of which my partner is a part of. And if you're a business owner tired of taking on your challenges all alone and are looking for unique networking opportunities, along with structured support through accountability groups and mentors, well, you can either start a podcast like I did, or if you don't want to do that, I highly encourage you to apply to EO. I'll leave a link for you in the show notes. And if you're not fully convinced yet, I'll be bringing on business owners on this podcast that are currently members of EO, including today's guest, so you can get a sneak peek of what you're getting. Dana.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I want to talk a lot about your personal business journey and your business journey, but I do want to get something out of the way first.
Sure.
There's a question that was being asked more than half a decade ago. A lot of people are asking it. I wonder if you have the answer. Dana, who is Boo Salim?
Oh my gosh. oh my gosh.
Who is Boo Salim?
Flashback. I wasn't expecting that. Nice. Busalim. Oh, wow. Busalim is, that is the beginning of a beautiful time in my life and my career. Busalim was a character that was developed for a very successful campaign that we worked on in my first company that I co-founded with my partner. And Busalim was... It was a political season, okay, in Kuwait. The parliament had been dismantled a few times. You know, we have a couple of things going on. It's what comes with a democracy. And there was a tea brand that was working with us at Beattie Dane called Alhanbali tea. It's a heritage Kuwaiti tea brand. And they had a very limited budget, and we wanted to find a way to develop a campaign that would really kind of be heard in all the noise and all the political noise going on in Kuwait at that time. And I remember it was crazy. There were elections going on. And Busalim was this character that we developed that was running for office, quote unquote, running for office for the 6th or 7th district in Kuwait, which didn't even exist.
So purely fictional.
Purely fictional. And what's hilarious about it is that a lot of people didn't even put that together. A lot of people forgot or seem to have forgotten that that district didn't even exist, but we kind of pitched him as a potential candidate who was running for office to be part of the Kuwaiti parliament. And literally his campaign was all about his values. His belief system was all about good tea. And it was insane because obviously we didn't have the budgets to kind of give him the kind of media coverage that a lot of the politicians had. So we did a lot of we did a lot of social media takeovers. And what was hilarious is that a lot of people started to make up their own stories about how Busalim was actually this real character who's running for office. And you know what? He is the character. He's the man that represents the Kuwaiti values that we all should be aligned with. You know, he's someone we should honor. And yeah, it was a campaign that, you know, got a lot of recognition for the client and for us as a company. We won a few awards for that.
I saw, and I'll link the case study video that you guys have on this for anyone listening to watch. I think it's a fascinating example of how to do things right. At some point, you guys were creating WhatsApp forwards with Photoshop pictures of him on billboards.
Literally. It actually started as that. It actually started as a leaked clip it wasn't even a clip, it was a picture of a newspaper advert with Busalem literally holding a cup of tea, saying that he was running for office and he was in a newspaper, and we just leaked it on a couple of WhatsApp groups, because in Kuwait, a lot of the conversations when it comes to news and what's happening in the country, it comes to us via either WhatsApp or Twitter. So we leaked it on WhatsApp groups, and literally within 24 to 48 hours, it was trending everywhere. And what was hilarious is that it happened around the same time as there was an Arab League summit happening at the same time, or a GCC League summit. And it was literally trending above that at that same time, and yeah. It was a good moment.
It's so nuts, because like at some point were even the TV like all these pundits on TV were like talking about like, let's talk about Boo Salim next. Like, no, he doesn't exist.
It was crazy. Naeem, there were people, I kid you not, there were people sending me messages, because no one at the time knew that this was a project that we as Beattie Dane had launched. Yeah. So there were people sending me messages of how did this candidate and how did this brand, when they eventually realized it was a representative for a tea brand, or it was an ad for a tea brand, they were like, how did they have the budgets to get ads on all the bus routes and on these big billboards on major highways in Kuwait? And like, we worked on the creative, we never had billboards, he was never on a bus, but people literally adopted the story and started to kind of create this narrative that went on and went viral at the time. So it was really nice.
Oh man, it's giving me so many ideas what to do with this podcast. So I'm going to take pictures of me and put me on Sheikh Zayed Road billboards, and we're like, the Tim Ferriss of Dubai is here.
Dude,
you haven't listened to him
I
yet.
like, why not? Do it.
No, I think the part that I loved about it the most, and you mentioned it too, is that you were able to capitalize on like a current trend. And I think that's such a weak point for me, especially because like I don't know what to do with current trends, because I stopped reading the newspaper like 6 years ago. I do go on Twitter a lot, but like, I feel like I'm very far away from the cultural conversation that when I think of campaigns, I never think of anything trendy. I'm always going evergreen. So this is a great example on like how to use like something that's currently happening and align it with that. Do you have any more examples? Like, what was the inspiration for that? Because like, was that just you sipping a cup of tea and coming up with the idea, or was there an example of something you've seen done before somewhere else? I'd love to see if there's more case studies like this, so that I can kind of indoctrinate myself to think like this a bit more too.
I mean, there's definitely case studies of things like this that do exist in the world. But I want to take a step back and kind of talk about why we were able to capitalize on it for the first time in a place like Kuwait. And I give a lot of that credit to my business partner. So both him and I have experience working for multinationals. And one of the biggest things that we noticed when we were working for the larger organizations is that as creative teams and as strategists, what tended to happen, wherever it was that you were originally from, when you would come work for a company, your world became your team, the office, and everything that happens behind a computer. Very little interaction went beyond the agency. I'm sure you can relate to this. Our hours were ridiculous. We're always pitching. We're always working. We're at the client's beck and call. So a big part of what my partner Enes and I decided when we started Beattie Dane is that we wanted to take a step back from this mindset of just producing work that was driven by specific objectives that were set by clients. And we wanted to develop work that was really insightful, work that stemmed from things that people were already talking about, work that people could feel connected to. And my partner is very passionate about politics. He's a writer as well. So he had always had this ambition of, I would love to do something during, during a high political season, a highly politicized political season. Because what tends to happen during political seasons is that everyone is spending ridiculous amounts of money on media. So that seed kind of was planted with him wanting to do something there. And then what ended up happening with Busalem was just having a really great client that had literally a very limited budget, but was willing to take a risk and do something that they knew everyone would talk about. And I think if I were to think of examples of that globally, My favorite example is, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's the Sweden number. Have you ever heard of the Sweden number?
Tell me about it.
It's a beautiful campaign. I really hope I don't mess up the
Sweden,
way I
like the
describe
country?
it. Sweden, the country. So basically, the insight from that was the best people that could tell you about Sweden and the reality of living in Sweden and visiting and enjoying Sweden were the locals. So as part of a national tourism campaign that they developed, they actually developed an international number. Okay, so the campaign was a phone number. And if I was living in the States or China or wherever, I could call this number and a random Swede would pick up the phone and I would be able to ask this random Swede, what is it really like in Sweden? Like, what's the weather like today? What do you guys eat in the morning? Do you go to work at a specific time? What are you doing right now? And it was insane. Like, random people would be able to answer this call and give real feedback. That's how much the government kind of had faith in what the responses of what the people would be, where they gave them kind of that power to speak on behalf of the country.
That is awesome. So like if you're in the States, it'd be a +1 number and you just call it and it'll land up in like a Swede.
Exactly.
In the morning in the US and at night there.
Exactly. And I think one of my favorite examples, one of the people, I mean, I'm sure there was an element of this that was planned, but it was a beautiful kind of part of the case study. The Prime Minister of Sweden answers the phone at some point.
No way.
So a random person is talking to the Prime Minister of Sweden and he's like, yeah, but are you really the Prime Minister? And he goes, yes, I am. And it was a beautiful it was a beautiful way to showcase how insight has the ability to drive phenomenal creative ideas.
That is insane.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Oh, this is. I'm going to re-listen to this episode and watch more case studies because I do have a limited budget with this podcast and trying to get it out there. I think I'll have to do some guerrilla marketing. Maybe we can share some ideas with each other.
Sure.
I want to stay in the past for a little bit longer, and then we'll come to the present day. When you were leaving your agency life in terms of your job and starting this with your partner, one of the things I like to explore, like the genesis of it, that bridge between job and entrepreneurship, I call the bridge of entrepreneurship because a lot of people travel on this bridge. A lot of people they identify themselves as entrepreneurs before they're entrepreneurs and they, always talk about it. But on that bridge, a lot of people do fall off. And I've always wondered what it was about me as well, not making the jump earlier. I wish I would have made it earlier. And I want to take that lesson into future risks that I take. So I wanted to know from you, around that time when you were deciding to launch Beattie Dane, what were the risk factors that you were identifying, in the sense that what was your biggest fear when you're jumping into entrepreneurship? What were you kind of leaving behind? What were your thoughts on the worst case scenario? What was the angel on the left shoulder saying, like, no, Dana, don't do this because of X, Y, Z? What was that X, Y, and Z?
It was a few things. Obviously, the first thing was money. I'll be very honest with you. I got started on my career path super, super early, and which was beautiful, but it was also a curse because it meant that everything happened super, super fast, faster than I was able to kind of adapt to it. And we can talk about that more later. But at a very young age, I was in my mid to late 20s. I already had an incredibly, very senior role within a multinational agency, and I was making an excellent amount of money. Okay, so there was no real reason for me to technically want more from an ambition perspective. I had the sexy title. I had an amazing, multinational background behind me. We had amazing work. We had the reach. I was still super young. I mean, there was a lot there that kind of didn't give me enough of a reason to want anything else, according to the rest of the world. But it wasn't fulfilling. So the risk wasn't what would happen if I took this step. The risk was what would happen if I stayed. And especially when you're working in an industry that feels very, very foreign in terms of the culture of how they work and where a lot of that inspiration for how that business came to be comes from. Like those are things I learned from kind of the Western side of that business, there was a lot that I couldn't necessarily relate to. And I wanted more, and there were things that I disagreed on. So it felt like the risk would have been complacency in the long term. If I didn't, I felt like I wouldn't grow. I wouldn't be able to challenge myself to really do something meaningful in this industry, especially as a representative, as someone from my region within this industry. I wanted more. So it wasn't the risk of what I would be leaving behind. It was the risk of what would be the repercussions of me staying in where I am when I know that I have ambitions to go beyond this.
Yeah. And it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but more than even wanting more, sometimes it's, for you, I'm guessing it's wanting different as well, because that, at least that was the case for me. I want more in the sense of I want more, let's say, financial security. I want to build my own source of income. I don't want to be anyone's slave, for example. That's an extreme word, but I don't want to be relying on a handout, and I want to control my own future. But at the same time, it was a sense of difference, like the culture of the things that you're saying, like maybe you weren't fitting in to the culture. Because I'll tell you my version of it. My curse was, as you mentioned, I got successful early, and that's the big handcuff in a career if you actually are really good at it. And not to boast, but accomplished a lot of things very early on, and that kind of pulls the chains down. So it wasn't about making more money because I was making decent money. I'm guessing you're making decent money. It's more about, is this it? And I looked at people that were 20 years older than me, that were in the industry, and I was like, is that, like, if I were to go in the future, would I want that life?
Yeah.
And the answer for me and for Lena around the same time was like, no. I want something different, more than even more.
Yeah.
Was that, does that resonate?
That resonates a lot. And I think that question for me was always, is that as good as it gets? Because I definitely, that wouldn't be it for me. And I remember a lot of people who loved me a lot and were worried about me when I decided to take this step. They were worried about, what would happen if you're taking this step too soon. You need to be more patient. You're still in your 20s. Dana, calm down, shui shui. And I'd be
you should
like,
be grateful for what you have.
You should. You should be grateful for what you have, because of course, So for me, it was always, I respect why this would be seen as a very privileged position to be in, because I know not everyone would get that privilege. But knowing what I knew then and being aware enough to observe or have an idea of where I wanted to be, I don't think I knew exactly where I wanted to be, but I knew it wasn't that. I knew I wanted more in a sense of I wanted to feel like I was doing something bigger than just climbing the ladder. And I knew that would happen if I started something on my own terms. It wasn't even about not wanting to work with someone else. I never had an issue with that. That wasn't the driver for me to want to create something on my own. But a big part of what me and my partner were so aligned on in terms of our values is that we really wanted to do something meaningful. We're just such suckers for meaning and purpose, which makes us perfect for this industry. But we really believed, we were naive enough to believe that there is more to this, and we have it in us to create something beautiful. Yeah,
it resonates with us as well. It's our couch conversations as business partners as well. I'll talk a bit more about your partner, but first, when you started this new venture, Beattie Dane, at what point, what was your first realization, damn, we're onto something good? Because again, the first few months, weeks, hours are kind of nerve-wracking too. It's like, what did I just do? Is this going to work? What was that first flip of the switch where you were like, you know what? I made the right move. This is the right decision. We're on to something good.
For me or for us as partners in the business?
For you. Yeah.
For me.
And then for the partners too.
I think, look, a big part of feeling like you're on the right path to something is feeling like there weren't specific indicators when it came to clients or the business or the office that we had or even the offering. All of those things were things that we were evolving as we went. But I think what made me feel like, oh shit, we're on to something, was when my partner and I would sit down and have conversations about what is the kind of work that we would want to create and see in our country with our people in our own language and have it resonate with people. Having those conversations on the nights when we wouldn't even have signed clients would be what kept us going. That's what would be an indication to us that we're on the right track. It will come. Like genuinely, it was a belief that it will come. There was no doubt in that. But those conversations made us feel like, okay, if I feel it and you feel it, then it will come. So I think that was really the indicator that we were on to something, because the more aligned we were in that as a value system, the more it got easier to go out, pitch to different people, get more meetings, develop more proposals. It was a cycle, but it started there.
I like that. I like that a lot. It's making me think of this as well. Like I resonate with you a lot on that. When Alina and I sit and talk about our principles and our values, we get this jolt of energy, even when the numbers are not going too well. So we're in a retainer business, and some months are better than the others because it's just the nature of the industry. You have clients come on, you have clients drop off. It's a fun game. It's a fun roller coaster. But when we sit and have these kind of discussions about, at some point, this will all pay off because our head and our heart and our soul is in the right place. And that might mean short-term pain in the sense that, okay, how do we pay the bills? And that, the reality is a business. But at the same time, we sleep well at night, knowing that, you know what, at least we're doing it our way, and our way is a specific way, and it comes from a good place.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from I'm not a war general trying to outbeat the competition and study them and dominate the market. I'm ambitious, but I wouldn't use that word about myself. And we'll talk about that word, ambitious, in a bit.
But you said something really key, and I love that. I want to build on it. You're not this kind of warlord going after the competition. And I think that's also another thing that really differentiated us. We didn't go into this thinking, sorry, I'm going to curse, but screw the rest of them. They're all doing it wrong, and we know how to do it right, or we know how to do it better. Yeah. Genuinely, we were so focused on what it was that we felt we could offer that was different. And we weren't looking left and right. We weren't looking at the competition or over our shoulder. It genuinely didn't even matter to us, because we knew we had something special, and we kept in our lane from that perspective. When I say kept in your lane, that's kind of a frowned upon phrase. It means that you're not going beyond a scope. That's not what I mean. I mean, we kept in our lane in terms of we had a plan and a vision of where we wanted to grow or how we wanted to grow this company. And we didn't deviate by, what are they doing? Did you hear about what they're doing? We genuinely didn't care. And it was such a liberating feeling at the time, especially when you're coming from multinational agency culture, where you feel like at some point, a lot of the work that you do is to get the attention of the industry versus the audience and the customer. I don't know if you feel that, but it's kind of...
That's the award focus agency.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love awards. We've won awards. I think awards are beautiful. They're beautiful. But I feel like genuinely, sometimes you see people that fall into the trap of thinking that it is only award-winning work that gives value to what you do. I've seen phenomenal work come from the region and from super creative thinkers, creative strategists that didn't necessarily get recognized globally, purely because they didn't understand the impact of what it had on us culturally. So I don't think that's always the barometer for success.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. So I don't have the baggage of coming from the agency world. As I was telling you off camera, I had more of an interest in finance and tech. So I had the advantage of not even knowing I still don't know who my competition is. So every once in a while, I'll be in Dubai, I'll be in a party, and someone would mention oh, you have an agency? Do you know of this agency? I'm like, never heard of them. Not that I don't care. I wish them all the best, but I don't have time to look at who else is out there, what they're doing, what their website looks like, what their offering is, I have no idea what the general pricing for my services in Dubai is, because my pricing is my pricing. I don't know what other people are telling me. My prospects would tell me oh, but my agency is charging. I'm like, I don't know why you're comparing them to me. We're very different. And I'm trying to tell you. But yeah, we try to keep that focus. I like what you said, like keeping the lane. It's more like staying true to yourself.
Yeah.
And understanding what your strengths are and what, not just what you'll say yes to, but also what you'll say no to.
100%.
Going forward to. And it hurts us financially to say no, but we say no more than we say yes.
And
Is that the case for
I
you as
applaud
well?
you for that. And that was
Yeah.
the case for us for 100%. And it's funny because when I say this, when I share this with anyone, sometimes it gets taken as a, who are you to say no? And that's absolutely not what I mean.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I sometimes one, I really do believe in chemistry. Okay. So not every client that, is interested in working with me or that I'm interested in working with, it's not always a good fit. Okay. And it's really important for me to evaluate whether this is going to work as a relationship, because if the relationship doesn't work, it always impacts the work and the output. And that for me, it was always our bread and butter. That, the work and the output is what we put our name to. And that's how people are going to judge us. So if that is going to be compromised by the relationship, even if it was the sexiest client in the world, we never had a problem saying no. And we do it obviously in a nice way. And we're very happy to give referrals. We have no issues with that.
It throws people off though when we do that. Because the thing is, these are not bad people. Like, just to be clear, right? Like when you say chemistry, it's not that we won't get along personally. It's like they're beautiful human beings.
Absolutely.
We love to hang out with them, but their business and their mindset about their business isn't in the right place.
Correct.
Where they can derive the full meaning of work through our work, right?
Correct.
So you end up saying like no, and you doing these referrals. Sorry, I cut you off there. But,
No. But it's exactly that. And sometimes knowing what I know about, for example, the way that me and my team work, I know that it would frustrate a particular type of client because they're used to a specific dynamic with their partners or their agencies or whatever. So if I know that, I'm not going to willingly be like, you know what, I'm going to show you how, I'm going to change your mind about the dynamic of how you work. I know how they like to work. They've been very vocal about it. But I don't think there's any shame about us as a company or any company being just as vocal and honest about, how they like to work. I'm just as invested in making sure you make the most out of this project and get the results that you want as you are. I'd like to enjoy the process as much as you would like to. So I don't see any shame in kind of taking a step back and saying, you know what, it's a no. These are the reasons why. I hope you understand. And I hope you'll come back to us if XYZ changes. If you're interested, the door is always open. Yeah. And you know what's interesting? I at least I can't right in the second. I can't remember an instance where that has resulted in a super negative relationship. Yeah. I feel like they come off respecting me.
Yeah. It's the same for us, right? Like if you explain to a client that what you need is someone to climb the tree, but I'm an elephant.
Yeah.
What you're looking for is a different kind of animal. I'm just not that kind of animal. And they get it, and they're very respectful about it. And, we're more than happy. We started, actually, I won't get into that because it might set a bad precedent for other clients. But again, the ways of showing respect, because it is a small market too, and we want our name to be, we want to be seen as we are. So we have to be very careful with these no's as well, and these referral backs too. And okay, switching gears. I do this a lot, by the way. I just take left turns at random. This is just how my brain works. Have you seen the movie Memento?
No.
Oh my God, I bring this up in every interview. But the character in the movie has bad memory.
Okay.
So the movie itself is not in chronological order.
Oh, wow.
It's really messy. And welcome to my brain. Working with partners.
Yeah.
So I'm working with a partner, and I'm wondering what lessons I can draw off people that do work with partners. There are very few people that have come on the show that are doing a completely solo business. And I think it's almost impossible to do a business alone unless it's a certain kind of business. But working with partners, we're learning to work with each other, but we've had instances in the past where we have worked on, let's say, failed businesses in like small ideas that we tried to do when we were younger. So we kind of realized like, okay, we're a good match and a good mix. The one thing that I want to check with you, and if you have any insight for me, usually where 1 + 1 is equal to 3, like both of us combined together, it's more than 2. It's something beautiful. Every once in a while, we both get into these funks. So whether it's a creative funk, whether it's a mindset funk, and it's just a part of life, right? Like things are not always rosy. What happens, or what can people do as partners when both of you get into a funk of some sort? It rarely happens when, I'll tell you what I'm asking is that those 5 days, let's say if there's a 5-day funk period, it feels like 5 months.
Or 5 years.
It feels like 5 years. So what, do you have any advice around like navigating that kind of situation when both the business partners for those 5 days are just not feeling like, how could we get some perspective and slap ourselves out? Or is that funk telling us something?
I mean, that question has so many angles to talk about. So I'm going to try and break it apart.
Sure.
So obviously no two people are going to be the same. Okay. And if I were to use the example of me and my partner, the way that we deal with kind of conflict or communication are polar opposites. Actually, we sit on polar opposite sides of the spectrum on many, many, many things.
Yeah.
Many things. Me and him used to argue all the time. But what was never... What always brought us together in terms of our ability to create incredible work and work so well together was that we had shared values in terms of what we believed, what we thought was right and wrong. And when those things were compromised, we always agreed on them. But the way that we dealt with conflict was opposite. You know, he was the type of person that, required space, needed to kind of reflect, understand how to deal with something. He was someone that needed time. I'm someone that is like, listen, I have a business to run. We need to deal with this shit now. And I can't let this affect the work and the day. And for someone who has that type of personality, that can come off as really intimidating and probably a pain in the ass. Like I empathize with that completely. But that doesn't mean that I'm wrong, and that doesn't mean that he's wrong, and it doesn't make either one of us right. It just makes us different. And I think this applies to any relationship that you have. But I think the best ways that we dealt with it always ended up being that we had an understanding where it was never one way of dealing with it. It was taking turns who would compromise for this specific fight or this specific disagreement. Genuinely.
Keep a tally on the wall?
Almost, like in our heads, literal, sometimes like fifth graders. But like, honestly, it worked because I'll tell you something. Look, the older that you get, especially when it comes to the ways that you deal with problems, it becomes really difficult to let things go. Sometimes ego gets in the way. We're both creatives. We're both super passionate about, how we think and the way that we think. So there is going to come a point in time where no one wants to budge. But, the beauty of why the relationship was able to kind of last over the course of, our 7 years as partners in our business was that we had an understanding where you are more than just this disagreement. I know what you bring to the table. You add a lot of value to what I do, and I add a lot of value to what you do. Genuinely, there's an equal understanding of that, and there's a respect for that. So when it came time to it, and I was the one that needed to go initiate, I was happy to do it. And to be completely fair, he did the same for me. And it would change. And sometimes it would take 3 days to do. Sometimes in beautiful circumstances, it would take 24 hours to do. In less perfect times, it would take, a week or longer to do. But I think what would always push us to decide who was going to make the first move was always, there's a bigger picture here. We have a team, we have a business, we have incredible things happening for our business. Me being the first to initiate kind of, okay, listen, I'm willing to take the first step. It isn't going to take anything away from me. It's going to be better for us as Beattie and Dane. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. I think the most important part of this conversation I want to paint for people that, when you see partners' stories in the newspaper, it's always like that, nice photo shot and they're all smiling and there's a thing. And I think there's nothing wrong with having disagreements with partners and having conflicts and having even groupthink, which is not disagreeing, but agreeing on the wrong thing together, which is another story of its own, right? Like the other part of this funk happens is that we start thinking about something that is not true to our values and we both start thinking it. That is even more dangerous when we're agreeing on something wrong versus disagreeing. But no, there are, I like that tally of like compromises, like, you listened to me last time, like trust me on this one. And it's also based on trust,
Yeah.
right? So when we started, because I have a lot of background in sales, I use that as a tool in my arsenal to be very persuasive with Alina, for example. And I'd bring on my like sales persona and really convincing. But over time, I realized like she can't tell that I'm then putting on this persona to get my idea across. And we started to do this, or we're starting to do this as well. We never had board meetings, which because you sleep in the same bed, you eat on the same table, you feel like everything is a meeting anyway. Like every time you meet is a meeting. One thing that really helped us is having a structured board meeting in our calendars every Thursday. The time is different, but it's always a cafe. It's always outside of our usual workplace. And it's always very objective.
Yeah.
Like here are the 4 goals that we decided for 2023. Where are we at for goal number 1? Your updates, my updates. Your updates, my updates. And every time there is a slight disagreement or a conflict, we go back to those 4 goals. Like, okay, this topic is about goal number 2. Goal number 2 was this. These are the projects we decided. Does this match? Yes or no? Conversation ends there.
Yeah.
So there's no further room for disagreement. When we didn't do this, when we hadn't taken the time to write down our values for each other, explain to them, have the goals aligned and agree on the goals beforehand, it would be a matter of disagreement on priority versus disagreement on what is actually to be done. So that's another thing, right? Like you'll both agree that these 10 things are important to do, but some of those things are not this year. Some of those things are in year 3. Some of those things are in today. What this is important. Alina is much like you. She's like, roll up the sleeves. We got to do this now. We're like, I'm busy. We gotta do this. I'm more of the, let me take my time to think. I'll go with my journal. I'll have an espresso. I'll think about it, and I'll formulate my thoughts and get back to you.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure, but there's something here. I can feel it. There's intuition. She has a much faster intuition and a much cleaner gut than I do. And usually after the 2 days, I come back to the same conclusion that she already had. But thanks for sharing.
But see, on that note, I think you said something like it's such a gold mine nugget of a thing. Yeah. And I feel like we should say it more. It's okay that she can get to things faster. And it is just as okay that it takes you 2 to 3 days to get comfortable with what she may have proposed 3 days ago. And for me, that's a big learning that came after. I don't think it's fair for just because I have specific strengths or I follow my gut or whatever it is that I think that I bring to the table, even if it ends up being the right move the majority of the time, that doesn't mean that I get to impose my process on others. And I don't think that's fair. And learning that the hard way has really humbled me in the way that I'm choosing to lead with my new business, with my new ventures. And it's okay. People function at different paces. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And just to build on what you were saying in terms of writing things down, I think one of the things that is super important when it comes to partnerships, especially because when there are multiple people after the same goal in the same company doing a lot of the same thing, there's gonna be overlap, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Having clear job descriptions and accountabilities is literally the most important thing you should do. And I guarantee you 99.99999% of partners do not do it. And I guarantee that 9 out of 10 of the problems stem from that.
I'll confirm your first part of that guarantee. I've asked everyone that's come on this show, and there's 25 people, that do you have a job description for yourself? The answer is mostly no.
Exactly.
And we were lucky, again, it's not we're smart, we're lucky that we read this book called E-Myth Revisited.
Oh, I've heard of it. Someone told me about it recently.
Fantastic book. Everyone starting their first business should read it. And had that thing in there. It's like, especially family businesses, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or if you're close to your partner in some way, a good friendship. And most partners are good friends or family, right? You don't just pick up a random stranger from the street to be your business partner. But yeah, it mentioned the thing of having these defined roles. So initially it used to be Alina as the CEO. I'm the CEO, the Chief Everything Else Officer.
I like that.
It was literally that. She would do most things and I would do everything she's not doing.
Okay.
And that created a lot of these gaps of things not getting done or not getting done the right way. And then we started doing, okay, you're on client retention. I'm on client acquisition. I'm chief operating officer and CFO. You are, team manager and that kind of thing. Like you're the HR. And once we started splitting that, I knew who the buck stops on. We're still going to help each other in everything. We're still going to wear all the hats. But I know there's someone calling the shots at the end of the day for a certain role. So if it's a big purchase for our business, buck stops with me. You present your case to me. And I will decide at the end, and you need to have that trust. If it's a team thing, you decide that, and I'll support you in helping you in doing that. But yeah, 100% true. Job descriptions. Recently, we've gotten away from our own job descriptions. It's a good reminder. I love doing these podcasts.
Yeah.
It reminds me to relook at mine and see if I'm holding my end of the bargain.
Not just holding your end of the bargain, but also setting expectations. Setting expectations for what others should expect of you and what you should be held accountable for. Because there's no doubt that when you're on a team or in a partnership, you guys are going to help each other. At the end of the day, this is a shared success story. That's the assumption. But I think it's really important to have these things set in stone, and they can evolve as you grow, but they need to be set in stone because there are going to be hard conversations that come up and you need to hold each other accountable. That is the only way you will grow individually. That is the only way you will grow as a business.
Absolutely.
And that is something I will never compromise on again.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Especially that we run the house together. We've seen it work for our house. Like having these specific roles, like you will take care of XYZ things in the house. I take care of ABC, and like it's always having that clarity. I want to move on to your current business, Bark Berg.
Yes.
Am I saying that right?
You are.
Is there a different pronunciation?
No, that is it.
That is it. Bark plus Berg.
Yes. Well,
or
sure.
is it and? Do you
no,
say
it's
and?
and.
Okay,
I have a thing with and names. People keep making fun of me. They're just like Dana, like Beattie Dane, Bark Berg. And I'm like, I swear there's no, I just like the ands.
Yeah.
There's something about and names that I like.
Yeah, no, they have a good ring to it.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a certain mystique to it because none of them are your names.
I mean, funny enough, to be fair, this was a state secret for a super long time, but Beattie and Dane actually are Enes and Dana in Gaelic, which was their partners. Yeah, super sneaky.
That is sneaky.
Yeah.
Is there the same thing with Bark Berg?
No, Bark Berg is more symbolic than it is a name. It stands for what we represent as a company. Bark comes. Do you want me to tell you?
Can you? Because I went on the website and it says coming soon.
Yeah. It hasn't launched yet.
So the soon is now.
Yes. The soon is literally now. The soon is in 2 weeks. So hopefully by the time this is out, it'll be out.
Awesome.
But Bark Berg. So bark was inspired from the bark of a tree, or cinnamon bark to be more specific. And the qualities that come from the symbolism behind this idea of having a bark, it is this idea of stability, but also prosperity. So this ability to stand strong, but also to grow and evolve. And Berg stems from the bergamot fruit, which you taste in Earl Grey tea.
Oh.
Yeah, which actually symbolically stems from this idea of joy, happiness, as well as growth. So for me, it was really, really symbolic, especially because according to the Hijri New Year, which is the Islamic calendar, which is my company was established in 1444. That's the Islamic New Year for 2022 or 2023, whatever we're in now.
Yeah.
It fell in line with the meanings of those names because that magic number actually symbolizes this idea of stability, sturdiness, while still maintaining this ability to grow in joy. So I loved it. I felt like it represented where I am in my life right now, and it represented what I would like to do with clients.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You put some thought into that. When I thought of my first business, it was making me reconsider Marwan, I'll need your help later. We need to come up with a new name for the podcast. But Bark Berg is taken. So Bark Berg, how do you define it? So I'll read out a sentence that you sent to me beforehand. How CEOs can articulate their vision internally to their team, amongst other things. Can you expand on that? Because I'm generally interested in what this service is or how you accomplish this, and what rose or how did this arise as a need that you want to solve this problem?
Sure. So I'm super passionate about everything that comes from my region, which encompasses everything in the Middle East and North Africa. Obviously, we all represent different cultures and whatever ideologies, religions, languages, etc. But there's something about growing things from the region that I'm super passionate about. For the past 14 years, the contribution that I've been able to make, or the very little contribution I've been able to make, has been from the perspective of communication, campaigns, brand building, everything that really helps build a brand externally. What I've noticed over the course of these 14 years in sitting in a variety of different boardrooms with different executives, working with operational teams, marketing teams, PR teams, people within organizations that serve, that have different roles, is that there is such a huge gap between what a leader of a business, whether it's a CEO or the business owner, expects and sees in terms of his business, and how that is implemented and articulated when it comes to his team. And that gap has to do, very simply put, with communication. Business owners and leaders see something. They have this ability to really kind of see where it is that they want to go, but they don't always do the best job of explaining that to everyone else in a way where they feel like their contributions feed into this vision. What ends up happening is that the CEO has a vision that is articulated in a sometimes cheesy, cliche statement that is put on a website under vision or mission statement. And they feel like there's no connection to that and what they do in their day-to-day jobs. And their day-to-day jobs are run by these silo verticals that have leaders and job descriptions that they stay within. They stay within the parameters of that. And in some cases, within those companies, each different vertical and division runs in its own way. They have their own culture of how they work. There's not this kind of broader, unified, collective culture where everyone feels like they are moving in the same direction. And when I say everyone, I'm talking everyone in terms of operation, the people on ground that are in the retail spaces, that are actually ambassadors for your brand, talking to your client, all the way up to the people that aren't even interacting with these people. They're sitting in offices running your marketing campaigns. These people do not realize that what they do feeds into a collective vision that their success becomes this success, or this company's success. But what I want to do is I want to come in, especially when it comes to homegrown brands. I want to work with these business leaders and CEOs, and I want to help them articulate these visions in a way where, one, it's easy to understand as someone that's within an organization, and I want to help them find ways to action that. How do I take something as cliche as a statement and turn that into an actionable strategy associated with associated KPIs that I can measure? With whatever HR is already measuring, there are KPIs that have to do with the growth of my business and the alignment of, is this feeding into the vision that I have as a company? So I want to be able to kind of do that. And a big part of it has to do with also building internal brand culture. And that's really the essence of what I want to do with Bark Berg.
I like that. I think that's much needed because I've grown up here. So my father's worked here, my family friends have worked here, and that's the piece in like company life that kind of goes missing. Everyone, as you said, works in their silos. Everyone's worried about their ladder and how they're going to climb it. But if you were to throw everyone in a company in like a retreat, will they all get along? Will they have something shared to hang out and jam about on their own?
Correct.
If you leave 3 different departments in one room and give them Post-its, what do you think will be on the walls? We're not sure. And when we started our business, we made that mistake, and I think we still can get better at it as a small business. our initial thing, and Marwan can confirm this, but for them as our employees, the main job was, or for us to like keep clients happy, and that was the entire thing. There's no vision. We tried to explain vision and mission, but they ended up sounding very cheesy, and they ended up sounding like not real enough for anyone to embody fully. The message that came out the most from us was like, the client is unhappy or the client is happy. And they kind of stopped there. And we're trying to see how we can improve that now, especially that we have a remote team, which makes it, which requires different strategies.
Yeah.
I would say it makes it a little challenging, but it's a good, fun problem to solve. I had a really good example of so I've worked in the Fortune 500, where, as you described, the whole thing was everyone's doing their own thing. And then I work at this 10-year-old startup. So I don't know if it counts as a startup, but it was 10 years old. The CEO of the company, Nancy Peterson at Homestars, she used to sit, and we had a large open space office in Toronto. She would sit right in the middle. No windows, no doors. Her desk was in the open floor, but right in the center. Granted, she had the fanciest desk. Everyone else had like desk, and she had the fanciest desk. But she had such a pulse on the whole thing, and everyone had a pulse on her.
Yeah.
Which was like, we all felt so connected, regardless of department, seniority. We felt connected to her vision and mission. And she wasn't the one that would just stand up and give a speech. It was through her actions.
Yeah.
It was what she stood for. It was very clear. And she would take, we had like we were a B2B business, and we'd have customers that were not really, some of them are not really big. So they're $200 a month kind of client, but we had a ton of them. She would take escalation calls once in a while. Like, I'll talk to this customer.
Good for her.
And that's the only time I felt someone doing it so well. And I don't know if she was intentionally doing it, but I can totally see the value of what you're talking about.
I mean, that's such a great example. And I want to give you another example that actually shows how that kind of thinking ends up working for you so much in terms of the reflection on your team. Do you watch Shark Tank?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, so
I
you know
watch
Mr.
clips on YouTube.
So
not the
Mr.
whole
Wonderful,
thing.
the bald guy that always sits
he's
in the middle.
Canadian. He's one of our guys. Yes, yeah.
And he's also half Lebanese, so he's also
Is
one of
he?
our people. Yeah.
No
His mom's
ways.
originally Lebanese.
No ways.
So we love
Okay.
him over here. His name's Kevin O'Leary, and
Yeah.
he told this story once, and I was shocked because obviously this guy is a multi-billionaire, super accomplished, and he I don't remember the exact number, but he has like tens of thousands of people working under him. Okay. So he told this story once of how he has two phones. He has a private phone, which only his family has direct access to for major emergencies. And then he has a work phone. He said something along the lines of, the 10,000 plus people that work in my company have this number. And everyone on the panel listening were just like, what? You're Mr. Up here, top CEO executive. Why do these 10,000 people have your number? He's like, because me giving them that kind of access to me sets a precedent that they also are going to be held accountable for the problems that they come to me with. So there is a responsibility on them where they feel that I trust them enough to give them complete access to me, but it also makes them reflect on, okay, but if I go to them, I'm not just going to come and bitch about, something ridiculous, which unfortunately a lot of people tend to do in a company that hasn't really invested in the proper kind of discipline or structure or culture. You have a lot of people just kind of bitching about everything. He gave them access to himself on the condition of, you can come to me, but you better come to me prepared to give me something that you're going to be held accountable for, which I loved.
I like that. That's intense. Like, that's one of the reasons I started business, was not to be in an ivory tower and have that kind of personality where I'm just one of you guys over here. And it's harder than it sounds. Sounds really good, but we did have our anti-goals, just like you did. We didn't, like, till today, we don't think of our agency as an office and media tower, a full floor, 40 cubicles, and us in the corner. That just doesn't vibe with us. And it's one of the reasons is because of what you're saying, and what you're trying to do is we want to be in the pulse and be in the know and move people together, because nothing great happens on our own. We've tried to build our lives as islands. it's very hard.
Super hard.
If you have a good mission and a good
Yeah.
vision, it's very hard to push the giant rock up the
Yeah.
mountain. But you have the support of the right people, and they're doing it with you, for you, and like just with you. If they feel like they're doing it with you, so that's something I do want to learn and improve over time. So this is a good reminder. I'm going to switch courses and get back to Bark Berg in a bit. But you also mentioned in the little brief you sent me before, I am a creative that wants to tell stories from my region. I want to engage in deep conversations and create things that will push conversations and storytelling forward. I want to dig into that. Is Something to Consider, your podcast, a part of that? Can you tell my guests about Something to Consider? How would you
Sure.
describe this podcast someone who hasn't listened to it yet?
Sure. First of all, to answer your first question, yes, it is part of that. I didn't know it was going to be, but it somehow did become that.
You didn't know in February.
No, I did not. Yeah, literally.
We're now in May and you can't stop.
I can't. It's addictive. So first of all, the name, Something to Consider. I am someone who grew up in cultures that were very, very different than mine, and around people who believed in very different things. Okay, that's been my story my entire life. Yet I'm so proud and I'm so grounded in my culture, my heritage, my language, my religion, my value system. It's always been a constant for me, and I'm very proud of that. But my ability to kind of be placed in these different places amongst these people that are so different than me has always kept my mind very open to alternative perspectives, things that I don't necessarily have to agree with, and a lot of the times I don't. And what's funny is that because that has happened so much throughout my life, even my need to assert whether I agree or disagree about something has almost gone away. Like, I can genuinely be in conversations with people, listen to different perspectives, and it could end there. So I'm very happy to consider something. I don't have to agree or disagree. I don't even have to continue having a conversation about it. So I think taking in alternative perspectives and points of view has helped me grow as an individual. So what I really wanted to do is I wanted to take that thinking and put it into a format where I wouldn't necessarily give advice. I hate the term give advice, and I'm not a believer in mentors. That's a whole other issue. But
we'll talk about
we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But I am someone who believes in sharing what I know, and whoever's listening is open to interpret that and take whatever lessons they want from that, because that's how I function. I love sitting with all these people that come from diverse backgrounds, that think some things that go against my belief systems. I'm happy to listen and take from it what could benefit me in my own life. And that's really what I want to do with Something to Consider. I want to have conversations that we don't have in our cultures. I want to talk about things like mental health. I want to talk about relationships. I want to talk about love. I want to talk about religion. And I don't want to talk about it from the perspective of, let's get disruptive and talk about that. And no, I'm so over that. I think that's such an overused way. It's such a boring dialogue to have. And everyone has just fallen into the trap of having these really ambiguous, divisive conversations around principles and ideologies and whatever. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a reintroduction to discourse. And I hope that I'm able to do that with Something to Consider. It's still a baby in terms of a podcast. I alternate between doing kind of solo episodes and episodes with people on board. But even the people coming on board, I don't consider them quote unquote celebrities or influencers or famous people or whatever. These are people that have specific points of views, something interesting to share that I think is worth talking about. And that's why they make it to the show. Mm-hmm. So yeah, did I answer your question?
You did, and I'll tell you something. So when I was preparing for this interview, I was telling Alina I was having a very hard time preparing for this interview, and it was really challenging.
Really?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because the more I read up on you, I told Alina, I'm going to end up agreeing with everything she says. And that makes for a very boring conversation because she'll say something and I won't be able to challenge you because there's a lot of resonance for me in the things that you're talking about even right now. So when you're talking about having things to consider, we're very similar that way in that, have you heard of this term called quantum thinking?
Yes.
So like,
Recently. It's new to me.
when I first heard it was years ago, and I just like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Cause I'm always in the gray.
Yeah.
I'm the least argumentative of my friends. I have a lot of high testosterone friends who are always like very opinionated, and they have like these just one viewpoint, and this is right. Yeah. And I'm like, that's right. And that's right too. And you know what? This one's right too. And you know what? We'll never know.
Yes.
And we don't have to all agree.
Yes.
And that always came across as boring. And then the other subset of boring is going deeper. Or when you say like you find controversial boring, same thing as me. I find controversial boring. I find what other people consider boring to be super exciting.
Yes.
Like, wow, I never thought about that. That could be right. It's like the reason I love science, for example, and I'll come back to something to consider, but the reason I love science and the scientific process or the scientific method is that you can, at the end of the day, science is very happy saying, we won't know for sure. They'll run experiments, they'll have theories, they'll have hypotheses, but most of the time, scientists are saying, we're not sure.
Yeah.
And they're okay with that. And being okay with like, you know what? We don't have an answer for that, because some things don't need an answer, some things don't need an opinion. So I'm really glad that you're actually doing this, and it'll be exciting to see how it kind of develops. Who do you consider, and this is a selfish question because I'm also always considering who my audience is for my kind of talk, because it's very mixed between human and business and human and a bit of both sides. But for something to consider, who do you have in mind? Who do you think you're talking to when you're in front of the camera or the mic? Who do you think is listening? Who do you hope listens to this?
That's a really good question. I hope the people that listen to this are people that come from my region, which is the Middle East and North Africa. I hope they are, because I think these are the people that I don't want to say struggle, but these are the people that I really... I always have these, my relationship to my identity is a very push and pull relationship. So the idea that something to consider is a medium to potentially connect with them in a different way, where I'm not necessarily speaking the same as all of them, where I don't look the same as all of them, but I feel just as accepted, being however I am, within that would make me incredibly happy. So from a cultural perspective, I hope people from the region are listening. I hope English and Arabic speakers are listening. I really hope that entrepreneurs are listening, even aspiring entrepreneurs, because I feel like entrepreneurial journeys are not limited to the business that you run. They encompass a lot of things that have to do with personal growth as a human. And I think what I try to do with my content is I try to paint a picture that it's so much more than that, but it does feed into the output of what you do in your business. And really, honestly, I feel like the more you listen, the more you kind of understand where I'm coming from that perspective. So I think that, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's novel. I think that's really great, because I know you're onto something good with that. I will explore a few certain episodes in the coming few questions about that, to give people a bit more of a taste of. I think there's some overlap in what you and I do, and I think coming from a culture myself that is not very open to talking about basic feelings, and is very quick to dismiss whether they're highs or lows. They're easily dismissed, and people kind of move on to food. It's always around. All of life is food. I've been kind of starved for these conversations. So when I did move to Canada, I had like a shift, because it's very Norman culture there. Discourse is very main part of their liberty and their freedom of speech, and everyone's always talking about everything, and nothing is really gray. But in my culture, it's not the same. Where I was hoping for us, at least this generation and the next generation, to kind of open up to a lot more things, again, like mental health and stuff like that, which we might get into later. I'm taking a hard left turn now, and I'll come back to the podcast.
Sure.
Pricing.
Tell me.
So, as a creative firm in the past, and this new firm, which I don't know how to categorize it, let's not.
Consultancy.
Consultancy.
Yeah.
Pricing in these kind of industries is just it's a mental exercise, right? Like you are charging for intellectual value.
Correct.
You're not charging for widgets. You're not charging based on hours. You're not charging. I know you mentioned somewhere that you guys used to charge on project basis versus retainer basis. I know there's a mathematical component to pricing. I'm not interested in that. I'm wondering what your philosophy on pricing has been and how it evolved over the years. Because I know for a fact, like what I'll be doing for the rest of my life will be intangible in the sense that you can measure stuff with KPI, but you can't touch and feel and hold something that I produce as my output.
Yeah.
So how do you think about pricing? What are your thoughts? How do you come up with a number? What are the factors that kind of go into it? What's too high? What's too low? And we don't have to talk specific numbers, but just how you think about pricing for these industries.
I think that's a really good question because this is something that I get asked a lot when I give talks at universities or to people that are just entering the job market, especially if they want to come in as freelancers or if they want to work for someone else. The way that I approach cost is I am a big believer that if you pay for something, you need to see a direct value in what you pay for. Okay. And for some people, that value is defined as volume of work. So things that are nitty gritty and detail oriented. For other people, it's in the design. For other people, it's in the production quality of a film or whatever it may be. Okay. So I take a lot of these things into consideration when I'm thinking about defining what it is in terms of a tangible output for people to understand what they are getting. Because while my service is thinking and ideas and storytelling and strategy, the way that I present that, there has to be a tangible output that can be felt. Especially because there's so much ambiguity around these things as products, okay? And it's natural. I've made peace with the fact that people are going to constantly question it. I understand and I empathize because I too am a business owner and I understand that it takes a lot to put my money somewhere and I want to feel like I'm really getting something for it. So I invest a lot of time in the way that I present my solutions to my clients, okay? And that varies depending on client to client because some appreciate brevity, directness, some need the 200 slides and the data and the whatever. They need it, and I'm conscious of that. And I build accordingly. I build time accordingly. So that's how I approach pricing. I do have a formula that I follow. That formula calculates the time that it takes to develop certain outputs. And that's how I present that cost to my clients. And I never call it a cost. I always call it an investment.
Right.
Because what I try to do with anything that I'm proposing is that I try to give them some sort of way to measure it. So whether it's with the saliency of whatever they're going to get in terms of the brand attributes, whether it's the recognizability of their campaign that we can measure, whether it's the reach or the share of voice or things like that, I try as much as I can to give them a way to measure it, which helps justify that investment.
And when you come up with it that way, it's then easier to parlay or convey that information to the client.
100%.
Because you've been so thoughtful about it.
100%. And I go into it super confident. Like, don't get me wrong, I get questioned all the time when it comes to price, but I no longer let that bother me. I used to get very offended because I used to be like, what are you trying to say? Are you saying I'm not worth this?
Yeah.
Like, come on, like, look at our work. We're awesome. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Ask Busalam.
Yeah, literally. Ask Busalam. Ask Busalam. But I'm a lot more empathetic to those conversations now. And I respect when people are willing to have those conversations with me. What I do not respect, what I no longer tolerate is when someone else dictates what my value or work worth should be. So if I have clients coming to me and saying that, by the way, X charges whatever, I look at them and I'd be like, I think that's great. They're going to meet your budget. Feel free to go with them. Because I find that to be super disrespectful to what I have to offer.
Yeah. That's a red flag for me when someone does that. It's like it's not going to be a good chemistry relationship if that's how you value partners.
Thank you for bringing that up, because if this is how the relationship is starting, where you already feel like I'm taking advantage of you, if I continue with you, you're going to question everything, because the barometer is always going to be, are you giving me what I'm paying for? No, I don't need that.
Dance, monkey dance.
No, I don't need that.
No, I know what you're talking about. It's the comparison gets me a lot. What I've started saying, and it took a lot of balls to say this the first time I said this. And I think I did it respectfully, but I'll check with you. Maybe I didn't. But a prospect said that, hey, this price versus like what I'm getting here. So I just asked him, like, how many more agencies are you talking to? And he's like, 3 more. I'm like, let's do this. Go talk to your 3 agencies. If you can't find anyone to pick from them, then we can talk. But go and talk to everyone else that you can. If you can't find somebody, then let's have a conversation. But in the meantime, I tell you to explore those 3 only. Let's pause our conversation, finish it with them. If you've disqualified all of them, then we can talk. And I don't know how it came across.
No, I literally do that.
Yeah.
I literally do that. And sometimes I even recommend you should probably add these 2 other people, not because I think that they are less than. Again, I repeat this.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
because I want you to come to me convinced that you want to work with me, you're going to get the value that you want from me, and I don't have to consistently feel like I have to prove myself. You're coming to me because you are convinced, and I'm happy I talk about this on the podcast in an episode, I'm happy to pitch myself to you. I'm happy to prove my value, talk to you about what I have to offer, convince you, educate you on whatever you need to know about me, put out all my cards. But what I'm not willing to do is be that dance monkey and compete with everyone around me. Because I'll tell you from now, I'm not going to win. I'm not. I'm not as invested as them probably.
Yeah. It's the same thing like if you're going for a first date and you take advice from your best friend who's very popular with women. Hey, what should I do on my first date? And you do everything that he said on your first date. You're not going to keep that relationship for a long time because you pretended to be someone that you're not. So if you put your honesty and your true values right up front and test them right away, at least you know like, well, in 6 months with this client, I will still be the same person. I don't have to pretend. And I sound smart saying this, but like this is a lesson that I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
We pretended to be dance monkey dance. Like, yes, we'll do it. Yes, Mr. Client, you are right. It's a good price. Let's go ahead. I will work 45 hours a week just for you. I'll put my best people on the team for you. And I couldn't sustain it for longer than 3 to 6 months because that wasn't who we are.
It's not who you are. And I also feel like
and it's unfair to them.
It's unfair to them, but also when you choose to take that approach, what does that say to the rest of your team?
Yeah.
What does that say to the culture that you're building in your company?
Yeah.
It is that even they are not as worthy as the person that is paying you.
Yeah.
And for me, that just sets a precedent that, especially in this day and age with today's culture, this very woke culture, I don't think it's going to be as accepted anymore.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. Going back to the podcast, as I do, we did a U-turn. Thanks for sharing that. I think the ending point for that pricing conversation, the biggest point in there before we move on to the podcast again, is the confidence. Something that, not to call Alina out, sorry, Alina, I'll make it up to you. I'll make dinner today, but the confidence is lacking.
Yeah.
Because of my background in sales, I have a lot more confidence to charge. Give me any number and I'll try to sell it. It's fine. Maybe it's a guy thing. She's very very meek when it comes to charging her worth.
Yeah.
Probably maybe because of some part of his insecure. And we've talked about this. She has mentioned it. She's like, a bit of insecurity of like, am I worth that much? But no, this will be important for her to listen to. Burnout.
Yeah.
Let's talk about burnout. So I'll mention 3 personas. You can tell me about these people. And this is going to be, this round of questioning is going to sound very open-ended, and that's on purpose because I don't have a specific question, but I just have a cue for a conversation. So these 3 personas are the ambitious, the rational, and the commander. I'm a fan.
I love that. Thank you.
I'm a listener.
Thank you.
Can you describe these 3 people for people that don't know what we're talking about or that haven't listened to your episode on this?
Sure.
And I also want to find out, I feel so left out. I'll tell you why. I don't relate to any of these three personas, and I haven't for a long time, especially when I've been in business. And I find like the opposite of whatever these guys are is always declared as lazy, as incompetent. And I don't think that's what the opposite is, because it just don't feel right. But I'm hanging out with people, and they're the ambitious, the rational, the commanders, and I feel very left out.
Yeah.
So who are these people? Who are these people, and how would you describe them?
So the ambitious, the rational, and the commander are these three archetypes that I talk about in one of my episodes that have to do with entrepreneurial characteristics. I say entrepreneurial, but they could be even people that are just working in companies. There are different hats that you wear. Some people embody those characteristics, like I am the ambitious, I am the commander, I'm the whatever. And sometimes I'm someone who plays between them. Okay. So the rational, just to quickly go over that, the rational is someone who is very system oriented. They make decisions based on data and what makes sense. And this is the logical way to approach this. A plus B equals C. There's like, why are we even talking about anything else? And they're very good at that. That is how they showcase their value. The ambitious are the people that you look at in awe, because they are hustlers, or the glamorized hustler mindset. They're the people that get shit done. They're the Steve Jobs of the world. They're the people who sleep under their desks and don't take showers for 2 weeks. Obviously, this is an extreme, but it's those people. And then you have the commander. The commander, the one that is this, wow. They're leaders, and they know what they want, and they can articulate what they want. But somehow they've set a precedent that, or they set a precedent and developed an illusion of a pedestal that exists, that we all need to kind of become part of. And not everyone can always make it. It's just the commander is someone. It's like an elusive leader. It's someone who does a brilliant job at articulating a vision and really helps guide people, but isn't necessarily always on the ground doing it. They're very high level. They're far away. And I think one person can be all of these things at different times, okay? And the reason you probably heard about these personalities more is because these are the ones that are glorified and glamorized in the work world. I am of the generation that grew up thinking that this is what you should aspire to. This is what you should be. This is what makes you a success. This is what makes you worthy of attention and money and accolades and whatever comes with it, okay? However, all of that is bullshit, okay? There are no archetypes that are a set formula for success. Even this idea of success, it's something that needs to be defined by each person individually. The idea of what success should mean, whether it's success from a business perspective or as an entrepreneur or even as a personality type, is bullshit. It's a glamorized story that the world has told us about, and we've just, soaked in, and we're trying to live up to, but it does not exist. And I found this out the hard way. I found this out, and I'm so happy that I found it out, because even if it was the hard way, I'm glad I found out early. I still consider myself incredibly young, and I have a lot ahead of me, and I am going to change. But it's changed my perspective in terms of how I look at leaders, how I look at businesses, and how I look at success. My lens is completely different. Like now when I look at people who are the ambitious, as an example, I still can admire them for what they represent. But I also wonder, are you sleeping at night? Like, are you good? Like, how are your relationships?
Like, is that price worth paying?
Is that price worth paying? And a lot of people, and it's frustrating because a lot of people, especially when I started becoming a lot more vocal about this, or even before I started to become vocal, when I started to tell people that I wasn't okay, when I started to hint at it, when I was still running my business and I was this crazy hustler, like I was someone who would wake up at ridiculous, like I have nothing against waking up early in the morning. That's when I get my worst work done. But I never used to prioritize myself. For me, the business, the work, the clients, the hustle, that was my personality. That was what I was known for. That's what people told me I was, people want to work with me because I am that person. But the problem is that person neglected the human, me, neglected me. And if I were to hint at me not being okay, the responses that I would get are, what do you mean you're not okay? Man up. And what's interesting is that the man up used to come from the female community, not from the male community. And I know that's going to get a lot of hate or whatever, but I mean, I feel like that's also something else that we need to talk about. I mean, I don't come from a generation where you see now, all of these supportive women's circles, giving each other, trying to support each other, collectively trying to give more of a unified voice when it comes to opportunity and diversity in the business space. No, when I was growing up, the most successful women that had to be harsh and hard were not people that I could go to for help. They were mean. And I'm not resentful of them being mean, but because that is literally what they had to do to survive. So I empathize. But I do not want to be that.
Yeah.
And I will not be that. And if I do become that, I will have failed myself. I don't want to be that hard. I forgot the phrase, but this. I will stop at nothing. I will compromise myself. This is the hustle. This is the only way people are going to respect you. You don't complain. No man down. And just no. COVID came. The entire world stopped, including your businesses. And what were you left with? What were you left with? You were left with a mirror and yourself. Were you happy with who you became? I know a lot of people that weren't. I wasn't. It forced me to ask myself so many important questions about what am I projecting? What is this illusion that I'm building, not just of myself, but for the people that I love? I don't want to be that example that I saw when I was younger of women that compromise their own well-being at the expense of the hustle. No, thank you. I'm not interested.
I think the game is almost set up on a macro level as a lose-lose game. And tell me if what I'm thinking. And by the way, thanks for sharing. I think it's important that you're voicing that. But the game is rigged in the sense that either you become this person on a path to burnout or a constantly burnt out person, a person without a soul and just go-getter. Or if you're not with them, you're against them. In the sense that I have been very careful not to get to a burnout stage throughout my career, in the sense that I would take care of myself whenever I needed to. But I had a different kind of struggle than you, which was the other perspective is because I wasn't on a path of burnout, I wasn't working hard enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not using my full potential. So there's two kinds. There's one, the go get it, hustle 24/7. The other is like, use your full potential. You're awake for 16 hours a day. You should maximize the use of those 16 hours. And you can have these habits and these routines and these like 1,000 things you can do. And I felt like I couldn't win because like if I tried to go to burnout stage, it wasn't me. I don't work hard. That's just my thing. I just don't. I like my afternoon naps. They're so lovely. And one of the main reasons I'm in business is I can take a nap in the afternoon. And it's very hard to ask your boss when you're working in a company, like, so it's 2:00. Can I go away in that room for an hour? And on the other side, it was like, Naeem, you're lazy. Like, you're not realizing your full potential. So my first awakening to this, and you can tell me about your first time you realized this too, or when it became clear too. When I read, you mentioned Steve Jobs in there. I read his biography by Walter Isaacson. Have you read that one?
Of course, yes.
First time I read that, I'm like, the price to pay for being that genius. Like, and then the negative feelings coming to me, and help me with this, is if I don't work as hard and crazy and I go absolutely nuts and destroy my family life, will I ever achieve something great from my life? And that for me has been difficult to reconcile. Like, is it true that someone needs to burn out to achieve something great? Yeah. Is it true that Elon Musk needs to marry 6 people before he gets to, like, is it true that you have to go to a fucked up life to get something good out of it?
Yeah.
Is it or is it not? Like, I don't know. That's something that I struggle with. So.
Yeah. I mean, my answer is 100% not.
But we need more examples of that
we
too,
need more
right?
examples. And I
People who are sustainably growing.
not just sustainably growing. Like I think even the definition of growth is so narrow because it's limited to how the storytellers of the world, whether they are media or people with large platforms and big voices in the business world, they've defined growth and success in one specific way. It has to be reflective of the money you have, the assets that you have, the bitchy attitude that you are entitled to because you are such a you're such a character that we need to revere, so you're allowed to be an unkind person. All of these things are illusions that have been defined by someone else. You know what we haven't been taught ever? Actually, we end up learning it later in our lives. We haven't been taught to take a step back and spend time with ourselves and understand what it is that we want as individuals. Even this idea of calling someone lazy because they don't work as hard, I don't think is fair. At the end of the day, we all need to survive, okay? Even lazy people are going to find a means of survival. All right. It's not going to be the same means or way that someone who is more of a hustler would do it. Maybe the output would be different. Maybe their houses would look different. Their bank accounts would look different. Okay, fine. I'm not arguing that. But it doesn't make one wrong and the other right. There was a beautiful example that was set. I was taking a course on scaling up once, and it was with Dr. John Mullins. And we were talking and debating about this idea of what success means. Is success selling your business for billions of dollars like Linda did to LinkedIn? Is that success? Or could success also be, you know what? I have my family. I have 4 kids. I have a successful business. And because of this successful business, I'm able to get my dream home in whatever, Wisconsin. And that's enough for me. And that was fucking beautiful. I love that. Why is that sad? But this is insane. No, not everyone Steve Jobs is incredible. I'm a follower of Steve Jobs. I'm an ambassador of Apple. I love what Apple has done. But it's okay for me not to want to be Steve Jobs. It's okay for me to want to be, Sarah in Wisconsin with my family and my husband and my business that just gives me what I need. In some cases, maybe she has it better. I don't know. I don't want to assume that she does or doesn't, but I definitely will no longer look at these 2 examples as, but did you see what he built? Yeah. No, it's an illusion. It doesn't exist. And I wish we would let go. There's a difference between learning from people's journeys, which I think is so beautiful, and I think it's important. I think the more that we hear about each other's experiences, we are able to kind of take away from them different things and figure out how that applies to our own lives. And I think that's incredible. But we need to stop ranking and setting these unattainable precedents for what it means to be successful, happy, in love, the perfect relationship, the perfect business, the ideal bank account. All of these things, they don't last. They are stories. They're literal stories. Some of them are I'm willing to bet, aren't even real. Honestly.
Yeah. History is written by the survivors, right? So or those with the loudest voices. But if there's one thing I would tattoo, I don't have tattoos, but if there's one thing that I would write, you do you as a thing. Because the reason I say that, and you talked about these hierarchy of like successful people and like having, there on one end, there is this highly ambitious, hardworking person. And when they do that, people are like, hey, slow down. You need some balance in your life. And then there's some people who are very balanced. Mm-hmm. Hey, you're not working hard enough. Maybe if you stop the balance for a little bit and give up some of this personal time and like work harder. It's like the world, like that's why I said the world is rigged. Like no matter where you are, what people are forgetting to say, in my opinion, is you do you.
Yeah.
If this is a phase of life you want to, and it's not like your whole persona is like your whole life.
It changes, evolves. Yeah. But you know something, Naeem? I think the takeaway from just this part of the conversation, it's a very simple principle. Mm-hmm. Stop telling other people your opinion about their life. End of story. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about even when it comes to being a woman.
That's my new tattoo, and just show it.
Just stop. Like even as a woman now, like women empowerment is such a big thing now, and okay, I'm glad for that. But I am so sick of the world telling me what they think I should be. It started as, married with children. Now it's, oh no, you don't have to be married with children. You can freeze your eggs and you can be an entrepreneur and you can get married at 40. And okay, but I'm not interested in what you have to say about it. Just don't have an opinion about it. It's okay.
Yeah.
We do not need to give each other advice on who we are. You know what? One of the most profound things that someone said to me after I exited and sold my business, it was one person that did it, and he was actually on the show, Darren. I did not know who he was. He came and he sat next to me. We were at an event. Never met him before in my life. Came, sits next to me. I'm not a big networking person, and he starts talking to me. Very friendly, nice guy. And he asks me, what are you doing in Dubai or whatever? And I tell him, I was in Kuwait, whatever, sold, exited my business. People's response to that are always, whoa, go you, congratulate, you must be living it up. Go you. You know what Darren asked me? He asked me, how are you doing? Are you okay? How's that affecting you? I swear to you, it makes me even emotional just thinking about it. Not one person asked me that. This stranger that I met at an event that I wasn't even supposed to be at, who sat next to me, a huge auditorium, asked me that simple question. And it's, why don't we do that? Why don't we do more of that? Those are the types of things that are worthy of conversation and reflection and discourse and dialogue, not that other bullshit illusion stuff that we keep getting fed of this is what life should be, this is how you should define it, this is... Stop. There are too many opinions.
And those opinions come in, like you said earlier, they keep changing every 5 years, let's say. Especially, it's harder for women too. So I can tell you from Alina's experience, the whole thing about need to have get married and have kids and that's a life, and then the other side's kind of screaming and yelling, no, you're an independent woman now, you're fierce, you need to go out and shoot your own shot and get success. And every 5 years that shit changes too, right? Because there's always someone telling you what to do.
Always.
This is kind of what I love about EO as well. So we're Alina's part of EOA, and we just joined last year. But every time I talk to someone from EO, it's all about that experience share and that gestalt, I think it's called, which is you're not allowed to say, you know what you should do? Because if I hear that one more time, you know what you should do. It's my least favorite phrase in the English language.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
You know what you should do?
Such a trigger word for me. I zone out the minute someone does it. I'm just like, okay, I'm done with this conversation.
I know. And I used to think it's coming from a nice place, but honestly, I think, I'm starting to do that too. My mind, my ears deafen. Yeah. It just goes into a little hum. You know what you should do?
And you know what I've noticed, Naeem? What? I've noticed that usually, and don't get me wrong, Tara, I've also been the person at some point on the other side who tells people this. Yeah. The more aware I become, the more I recognize my own actions. I'm not in any way saying that I'm perfect. Yeah. But what I recognize in the people that are still doing that with others, and it's interesting, and now I don't make it a point to respond. If I don't want to answer the question, I'll figure out a way to just get out of it. But I noticed that when they say that, it is to assert themselves and shield their own insecurities. That, the way that they articulate what it is that they think I should do is such a projection and a reflection of things that have to do with them more than it has to do with me. Yeah. And I can see that. I can see that in the way that they and sometimes it's quite sad. Yeah.
Alina and I have started doing this thing where when we're on a rant, the person must ask, are you looking for a solution?
Yes.
Or do you want me just listen?
Exactly.
I don't know where we picked this up from, but we didn't come up with it. We picked it up from somewhere and I can't remember what it is, but we got into this last night or yesterday too. I was going on a rant and she started giving solutions. I'm like, I just want you to listen.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I forgot my own rule. And she came up with a rule. So that, I'm hoping more people can just do that. Be like, hey, you okay? Can I just listen? Is it okay if I just listen and don't give advice for once? Is that fine too?
That's brilliant, by the way.
And you're right. People need practice, not just asking those questions like Darren did, but also being able to respond to that question. It's not easy
It's not.
Because we haven't been practiced.
Exactly.
To do that and open up. And this is so hard to do again in a 2-hour podcast like this, because I can talk about this particular subject for at least 8 hours straight. But alas, we do have limited time. We do have a hard stop in 15 minutes. Man, I wanted to get through a lot with you, but I think we'll have to bring you back
Happy to.
for round 2.
I love how, like, honestly, you're really good at this, Naeem. MashaAllah.
I want it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'll tell you all the things that I want to talk to you. And there's no way we can get to this in 13 minutes. Is that what we have, Marwan? Hard stop. Wanted to talk about mentorship. That would be fun. I wanted to talk about the role of EO in your life. I also want to talk to you about creativity. I thought of doing a thought experiment with you. I don't know how long this would last. I thought of like, okay, let's imagine we're in a court and you are the defendant and you represent creativity. And the court's order is that, from now on in this world, there shall be no creativity. Everything will be done according to logic. Everything will be done according to plans and like neat boxes, and no one's allowed to be creative. And you, on the other hand, had to stand in defense of creativity. But maybe that can be a podcast that you could do. I want to talk about your article about when to fire your agency. I wanted to talk about...
I actually do talk about the creativity, by the way, in an episode. It's called The Cult of Creativity.
We will go listen to that one next. I want to talk about constant pursuit versus presence because I really like that one too. So let's see, which one do you, out of all the things I've mentioned, which one do you want to tackle?
I think I could. I can get very quickly into mentorship and EO just to give you an experience share from that perspective. So my issue with mentorship, I'm not against it. Everyone should do what works for them, but there's a reason that mentorship did not work for me. I spent the majority of my life when it came to my career looking up to specific people for what I thought that they represented, okay? And I used to find a way to associate myself with them under the guise of, I want to learn from you, I want to shadow you, I want to do this. 9 times out of 10, they would disappoint me. Okay, they would disappoint me in terms of it's not their role to obviously do anything for me, but I found them disappointing because they would always fall short of the illusion that I had built in my mind of what they represent. Okay, by no fault of their own. Like I'm not judging them, but I'm saying the way that I was positioning them in my mind of what they should represent. And that's when I really changed my perspective, where I no longer want to look at people and what they've done as a point of reference for my learning. I want to broaden that to interacting with people from all walks of life and taking whatever lessons I can take from them and apply them to my life, because their way is not going to work for me when it comes to my principles, my values, my belief system, and literally what I have the capacity to do in my world. So I don't believe in just because it worked for Sarah, haram, I don't even know who Sarah is, but I keep saying Sarah. If it worked for Sarah, it doesn't mean it's going to work. Poor Sarah. It didn't work for me. I'm a firm believer in that. What I love about EO is that I was with them in Kuwait. I've now shifted to the Dubai chapter. What I love about them and what I respect is that everything that they represent goes back to personal growth, okay? And for me, that's an investment worth taking, which is why I'm so happy to be part of this organization, because a lot of what I am learning, even though it's giving me access to a lot of different things and tools and education and people, it all comes back to kind of the central focus of helping me grow and develop and become a better version of myself. And where I am in my life now, to come back to in pursuit versus in presence. I spent the majority of how I was raised, because I was such a fast learner, because I always liked to be top of the class. I was always a high achiever. It was a big way that I thought I needed to be in order to receive love, to be accepted. That in itself is a longer conversation.
Yeah. It's such a curse, though.
It is a curse. Success is a curse, 100%. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
But what I've come to find where I am now in my life after all this reflection is that, the pursuit can sometimes be consuming. So I need to be very aware of using it as a tool that could drive me, but it shouldn't dictate my path. The pursuit is no longer my path. What I want to do is ensure that I am taking in what is happening as it happens. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be planning ahead. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be ambitious or looking forward. I'm just no longer going to let the majority of my thinking space be occupied by tomorrow. If it happens, it happens. But what's happening today is incredible. Me being here today, having something to say on a podcast that is going to help people, whether it be in life or in business, what a privilege. What a privilege that someone's going to take an hour, 2 hours out of their day to listen to something little me is going to say, and that's incredible. What a win for today. I'm so proud. I'm so grateful to be here. I want to enjoy that. I want to be more conscious of that.
What is the flip side of that? Is that constant chase? Like here's the thing about the constant pursuit or the constant chase. People don't know when they're doing it. Right?
Yeah.
Like when you're in that cycle, you don't know. So if you were to point out a few symptoms of, you could be someone in a constant pursuit, like hamster wheel.
Yeah.
What are the symptoms of that?
I think the best answer is one that was given by a therapist that came on my show, Dr. Fabian, and he was talking about it in relationship to trauma. Mm-hmm. If you are in a stage where your surroundings or your context or your feelings or your thoughts generate a physiological response, meaning your breathing changes, you're tired, your back hurts, you're not sleeping well, you are irritable, especially with others. You have no patience, you're not eating correctly, you're losing weight. If these physiological things are happening and can be felt and can be seen, and if other people can see them and you're hearing them, that already is a warning sign that something is going on and you need to stop and reflect and think.
It's like, have you read The Body Keeps Score?
Yeah, of course I have.
Okay,
it's a fabulous book. I think everyone needs to read it. It's an incredible book.
The most important book I've read in the last 12 months.
100%.
But because that talks about that a lot,
Exactly.
like how your body can physically. And the first time I read it, I'm like, that explains so much.
It does.
Not just for myself, but people around me too, right?
صح.
No, thanks for mentioning that, because I don't think people make that connection between body and brain. But I've never tied it like you're tying it. Like you could be in that hamster wheel of constant pursuit and not being too present. Because the opposite is something to, if I were to imagine the opposite, it would be me floating off the ground. It'd be me walking from room to room, just floating and feeling like there's pillows everywhere. Not that I want to sleep. I do like my sleep. But that lightness versus the heaviness.
Yeah.
Or like I've struggled with my own mental health challenges in the past, and even my bowel, for example. And I know what's happening in my bowel is because of something
100%.
up here.
100%. Our bodies are incredible. Our bodies, all the answers that you're looking for in your life already exist and have the capacity to heal within your body, whether it's your brain or your physical. It's incredible.
Yeah. And Man, there's so much to talk to you about, Dana. Don't leave, but I wish you weren't. What's that, 5 minutes? Okay. I do have a rapid fire round.
Yeah, go for it.
But you'll have to come back because we have so much to talk about.
I'm happy to. Thank you.
While I ask these questions, Marwan, you're going to guess in your head what she's going to answer. These are this or that questions.
Yeah.
You ready for it?
Ready.
Yeah, very controversial. I'm joking. Very easy. The most controversial one at the start. Ice cream or gelato?
Gelato.
Nice and fast answer. I like it. Second one, easy question. Exciting flexibility that leads to volatile results, or boring consistency that leads to sure results?
First one, exciting flexibility, rapid results.
Exciting volatile results.
Volatile. Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay. Number 3, spa day or shopping?
Spa day.
Same. If you weren't living in Dubai or Kuwait or in this region, where would you be? Where would you live?
Well, since you put a cap on the region, where would I live? I would definitely live in Paris.
Okay. I haven't been.
Oh,
Should
my
I
God.
go?
Yes. I think I'm the only person in the world that I honestly should be their ambassador. I love Paris. It's magical for me.
I heard it's very dirty now.
A lot of people say that, and they have their issues now. I'm kind of angry with them about how they're treating Muslims, but that's another issue.
Yeah.
But Paris is everything.
Okay. Paris is on. This is how I make my to visit list.
Nice.
I ask people on the show. Favorite Netflix or favorite TV show of all time?
Oh my God, Breaking Bad. 100%.
Right? How many times have you watched it?
Full
Yeah.
seasons, at
Yeah.
least 2.5 times.
Yeah, two and a half for me.
I
too.
love them.
I've watched it 2 times, full seasons, and then every once in a while I'll open YouTube and I'll like watch these 10-minute clips.
Me too. Same. I go back to specific moments in episode.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's such a case study for good storytelling. I love it.
It
I love
is.
it.
It
It would be
is.
the dream to create something as impactful and gorgeous as Breaking Bad.
Such art. Everything about
love
that
it.
show is just
I love
art. Okay, the one book every business owner should read,
Good question.
but doesn't have to be a business book.
It doesn't.
You can give me both, a business book and a non-business
My
book.
favorite book is I forget his name, Mark, but he's the CEO and founder of Netflix. It's called That Will Never Work. I think that is a fantastic book. I swear by it. So definitely that book. I for sure The Body Keeps Score. Oh, and another one. This is more of a. This book made me cry, but I finished it, I swear to you, in 24 hours, and it also changed my perspective. It's called When Breath Becomes Air. It's incredible.
Have I heard of that? When breath becomes air.
It's such an incredible story. I guarantee anyone who picks it up will not stop reading it until they're finished. That's how easy a read it is.
Okay, it's going on my Kindle very soon. If you were to stop, well, you know what? This question doesn't apply to you. Would have asked in the past, a few years ago, if you were to stop working in a creative agency, what would you be doing? But I guess we know the answer to
But
that.
actually, no, I have an alternative answer. So on my bucket list, so I'm
Yeah.
a writer as well.
Okay.
And I am working on a book, which I'm very excited
Ooh,
about. But
okay.
the dream, the dream, I would love to create a show or a movie.
Fiction.
Yes, of course, fiction. But something within the realm of the content that I love to see on these streaming platforms. I would love. It would be such an ultimate dream to write and create a show like that. Oh my God.
I'll be watching your journey. I'll
We'll
be
see.
seeing.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
I'll be
crossed.
seeing. If you need a soundtrack to that or sound score, let me know.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, I'd love to experiment on that. Last question, and this might need context, but we don't have time. Are you building with Bark Berg a big company, or are you building a small company?
That is a very good question, and it's very loaded. But I'm going to give you the short question, a short answer, because I keep debating this, and I'm working on my 5 to 7 year plan right now.
7 years.
Yeah, I initially had planned for this to be something boutique and small. I think I'm changing. I think I'm pivoting. I have a couple of ideas as to how it's going to evolve. I think consulting and strategy for CEOs is going to be the entry point for something much, much bigger. And yeah, I'm very excited. I have kind of a timeline of 7 years for myself of creating something. And I do think it's going to be bigger than I thought it was going to be.
I love it. This is such a tease, Dana.
So watch this space. I don't know if I can do it.
Space. But no, thanks so much for coming on. I have so much to chew on. And as I told you, there's so much more to chew on.
Thank you.
I will be following something to consider because I think you end up talking about some of the stuff that I want to hear anyway. And I'm glad you're doing it.
Thank you.
I'm going to get Alina hooked on it as well. And just keep doing that, please. Because I can't do it as much. In this podcast, I try to get into more the nitty gritty of the business stuff. But for this episode, I was like, no, you know what? There's something more that we can do. So I'm so glad that you're on.
I honestly, Naeem, I'm so grateful for, I really didn't know what to expect. I've seen previous episodes of what you've done. Obviously, you're great at this. But I walked into this wondering, like not knowing what to expect. I didn't know what I was going to be asked. And I felt like you really honestly surpassed my expectations. This is the best interview I think I've had with someone. So I thank you.
Make me blush on camera now.
But I thank you. I thank you for putting the effort into just questions that challenged me. And I don't know if they came off as that, but they did challenge me. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy I met you. You and I need to be friends.
I know. You're here all the time in the studio. I'm here all the time.
I tell them, this is my studio too.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, we'll see each other on the community area.
Hopefully.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.